All right, we'll go ahead and get started in the next section. This talks about should I stay? And when you're looking at your current vendor, it's very common that you may have a really tight relationship with your partner. And you and your core may go out for drinks, you may go out for dinners, you may know their families. And so sometimes it's hard to put emotions aside and look at the facts. And so we're going to encourage you to do that as best you can because you've built up that relationship and that's important. And so keep a look at the facts when you're looking at your core, not just the relationship. And the second thing we're encourage you to do is involve your staff. Like one time I went into a meeting and the CEO invited me in and we got around this big old table and he had his management staff come in and he was a little bit late. And they walk into this meeting and they put their arms across their chest like this. They put their frown on their face and they were not happy. They did not want to be there. And I thought, man, I must have came on a bad day. But what I found out is that the CEO and the board had saw a system at a conference, liked it, looked at it, decided to get it, and said, staff, okay, you implement this bad boy. And I had shown up about 8 months after it went live, and it was misery. The staff was not happy. The CEO was walking on eggshells because he almost had a revolt. And so what we're going to encourage you to do is get your staff involved early and often. And specifically when you're looking at your own core, have them decide, okay, in my area, what's important? What do I need? How am I doing? Okay. Now, the next section I want to talk about is your peers. Like, encourage you to talk to the other folks that you know on the system. Say, hey, how are they doing for you? How is your bill? How does it relate? Are we similar? Is it high? Is it low? Tell me kind of what you're paying to how I'm paying. We had another Credian who was coming to a conference. He wanted to talk to the peers on our system, his peers. And so he showed up at a user conference, and this was a couple of years ago. And he was a tough customer. We had a hard time solving his pains. Nothing we could do to make him happy. And so he was there with several hundred people from our user base, and he was looking for people who were also unhappy. And it was hard for him to find a whole lot of them. By the third day, he did find someone else. And what he was looking for is peers to talk to about the system. And a user conference is a really good place for that, because then you can go talk to a lot of people who are on it. And oftentimes without the salespeople involved, without the ownership involved, just you and the users there can easily talk about how they're satisfied or not with that particular system. Now, the fourth thing is probably one of the more common things that you're going to think about is let's look at our contract to see what is available to us and what we can do. And there's three things I want you to take a peek at when you're reviewing your own course contract for possibly renewing. Number one, look at the CPI index, that consumer price index. Maybe there's a way that you can limit it or cap it or reduce it or who knows what else. But that would be the great time to do that, because if that goes up too much, like we've seen it as high as 10% each year. And so that is one of the ways you can help protect yourself for budget constraints later on. Another thing you can do is to have your attorney take a peek at it, pay some dollars to have your attorney look at it and see what they can come up with ways that would be more beneficial for the Credian. And then finally, for deconversion services, see if you can lock down what's in and your costs are for deconversion. Now, sometimes that's not so easy. Like we have a Credian who's converting to our system in April. And they said, okay, Corey, you said our system deconversion would cost this. It's in our contract. See it right here? And the core said, I know what your contract says, but unfortunately, that's not what we're charging today. We're charging this. And so if you want our help, you got to pay this. Like, no, it's in the contract. And the core came back and said, okay, your options are you can pay this or you can have someone else do it. We don't really care. And because they let the Credian have both options, the Credian had very little they could do to try and get this dollar amount that they were quoted for in the contract. But encourage you to try and get that in there, because not all the cores are going to be turkeys and change up that deconversion number like that, okay? And then finally, look at that auto renew date and clause. We had a credit that had was moving to our system. They picked it out. They were going to come to our system. They had emailed their account rep. Okay, I'm not going to stay. I'm leaving on this date. Please stop the contract. And 3 months later, they got no response. Months later, the credit union's asking them for data, and the core said, we never got an official letter from you. And the credit union said, what do you mean official letter? Well, in the contract, it said you have to write a letter, send it certified mail, and you got to mail it to this address if you ever want to stop the contract. Well, they didn't do that. They had told their rep via an email, and that wasn't good enough. So then they had to renegotiate for a year or two, and that was a pain in the butt. So keep a look at the exact wording of what's involved to not auto renew. The second thing about not auto renew is the term. Really be careful about what date is that you need to know to tell your core not to let it automatically renew. So there's pretty common, it's about 12-month window. You got to give them at least 12 months window for it not to auto renew. It doesn't mean that you're going to leave that system. It just means I don't want this thing to auto renew. And so then you've got yourself plenty of time to look around if that were the case. Okay. And those are 5 things that we think would be important when you're looking at your core.